Hi drummers, Gary Williams here, your Drumset mastermind and creator of the Drumset Artistry Mastermind Group. Today we hit 1,400 members. Yoo-hoo! Lots of great exchange of information. Thank you all for participating in this awesome group. Today in my Facebook Live, I want to talk about learning by ear versus learning how to read. Well, let me start by saying we all learn to talk before we learn to read. So listening is the most important skill to have as a musician, because if you can't understand what's going on by sound, you won't really get your body to be able to play the things that you're hearing in your head. And that's where the reading part comes in. So you can usually get a certain distance down the road learning things by ear. In fact, many of you in the group have talked about how you kind of wished you knew how to read, but you've just been an ear player your whole life. And some of you have been very successful at this because some people have sharper hearing skills than others, for whatever that reason is. And so by learning to read, what you can do is you can hear something that you don't understand, but if somebody else does and they've written it out, that's called transcribing, then you can look at the transcription and piece it together to eventually build the whole beat. So just because maybe you think reading is really complicated and you can't do the whole thing, if you can read little notes, like maybe read the hi-hat part, or read the snare drum part, or read the bass drum part, and maybe play the hi-hat with the snare, or maybe the hi-hat with the bass, and then finally maybe the bass with the snare. All these little practice strategies that you can use when you can see a blueprint of the sound. That's the way I think about drum beats. Like a blueprint for a house, carpenter needs to study the plan, plan the work, and then eventually work the plan. Same thing with that when it comes to reading drum music. You can see the drum music written out. It's literally like a blueprint for how to build sound. So you can build little portions of it before the whole thing comes together and you have all four parts. Now, this is something that you can do on your own by ear, only to a certain point. I'm going to share with you something that happened to me that really made me appreciate my ability to read, because eventually I started learning how to actually write out drum beats. I really enjoyed trying to figure out some drum parts that Bill Bruford played on the Yes album called Fragile on a song called Heart of the Sunrise. I spent about 3.5 weeks trying to just transcribe that whole introduction. I didn't get it right, according to his book, but it made sense to me. But what really opened the door was I was listening to a song by Journey called Don't Stop Believing. Kind of a pop tune, but there was this very interesting tom drum beat kind of combination that Steve Smith played. And I listened to the song and I sat down and started playing it and realized, I'm not getting this right. And I tried it a few times, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me that even though it's kind of a simple kind of sounding groove, it's deceptively difficult to orchestrate the tom, because you have to play left hand lead on the hi-hat, the right hand goes down the drums and hits a cymbal bell, and it's a little bit more involved than your average pop beat. But what I did is I sat down and wrote out the part of the beat that I could understand. And then I added around that the other part. So it was kind of like I started with one part, and then by doing that, I could piece the other parts to it until eventually I transcribed the beat. It was like, oh my gosh, that's how he does it. So it was one of those things where it went from kind of a mysterious thing until I started writing out the parts that I did understand, moving toward the parts I didn't, and eventually being able to unlock the whole picture of all the 4 limb parts. Then, of course, at that point, I was able to practice it and pretty quickly play the whole thing. Now, I don't think I could have done that without reading skills, or it would have taken so much longer. And that's the point of this. It's like, imagine if you don't know how to read the English language. You would be considered an illiterate human being. This is why we go to school. We learn literature, which means reading and writing. So we can read and we can write. And if you apply that to music literacy, you can read and you can write, not just by ear. So learning by ear is great. Learning by eye is great. But you actually have eye and ear together, which is triple great. And there's so many things that can happen that won't happen if you don't have either of those skills. When you have those skills together, man, you can really take your drumming to a whole new level. So for those of you out there that have really never really taken the time to learn how to read, well, I invite you to take the time to learn how to read, because by golly, if you do, you'll go through so many different books. You'll be able to teach yourself things that you never could do on your own without knowing how to be a reading drummer. So private message me if you want help. I can give you the same kind of results that I give all my other clients. I'm really into reading, counting, and I'm able to break it down in a way so it's not complex. So if you're interested in finally really learning how to become a literate drummer, knowing how to read, and then eventually write, I'm here to help. So keep that in mind, and let's get together and change your drumming world by learning how to become a reading drummer. All right, that's all I have to say for today. So enjoy the rest of the day. Be nice to yourself, keep practicing, and we'll continue our journey together in this awesome Facebook group. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.